Good morning, Ohio State fans. Welcome back to the 11 Dubcast for Friday, October 3rd, the day before the Ohio State-Minnesota game, and more importantly, the day before 11 Dubgate. And to help break it down, both events for me, I'm joined by 11 Warriors executive producer, second in command, Mr. Chris Lauderbeck. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to join you. I love what you've done in kind of repurposing, reinventing, rebranding the Dubcast. So it's nice to be on with you.
Well, I appreciate that vote of confidence. Thank you. And yeah, I felt it was important to continue the legacy that Johnny Ginter began here a decade and a half ago. So
Absolutely.
I'm grateful for the opportunity that and the trust you guys have put into me, and I think it's gone well so far.
Indeed, it has. I don't miss an episode. I'm glad to be on one, but yeah, I watch them all, and yeah, like I said, I love the way you've kind of reinvented it. Johnny was a legend in his own right, and the way you've kind of taken it. And I like the daily. I like the snippets. The weekly is obviously always great. There's certainly a niche for that and whatever, but I like the. I don't know. Even though I'm old, I'm young, and that hey, I need the shorter burst of this stuff, right? So I like the fact that we've got the daily with a little shorter time span on it. So well
Yeah.
done so far.
Well, thank you. I do think it's a more digestible format, so I think it's worked
Indeed.
out so far for everybody involved. We are going to get into the Minnesota game as well as 11 Dubgate, but before we do that, real quickly, we want to give a shout out to the sponsor of the 11 Dubcast and 11 Warriors this Ohio State football season. That would be First Bank of Central Ohio. From game day to work day, First Bank of Central Ohio is proud to support the business owners that keep Central Ohio thriving. They are locally owned, business focused, and always in your corner. Give them a visit at fbcentralohio.com. All right, Chris, I was at Dubgate 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it this weekend, but I had a rip roaring time for the Michigan State game last year. I believe it was the Indiana game that you guys had it
Uh-huh.
for the 11th one. So I believe this is 11 Dubgate 12. Is that correct?
I believe we're up to 13. I think this will
13.
be 11 Dubgate 13.
Gotcha. Okay. 11 Dubgate 13, and it's happening a little bit earlier this year than I think it traditionally has, but it's, just with how many noon games Ohio State is getting
Right.
lately,
Yeah.
beggars can't be choosers in terms of when we finally get a night game. I'm surprised we're even getting two night games at home in a row for Ohio State, given the Ohio game that took place a handful of weeks ago. So why don't you give us some more of the details? Because I know you're going to be there, and I know you are always looking forward to helping put on this event every year.
Yeah, 11 Dubgate 13 will be on Saturday, and I think technically we're like at 4 p.m. But if you storm the gates at 3:30 or something like that, I'm sure they won't turn you away. Ramsey obviously is the biggest driver of this. He's really kind of made it go for the last many years, in conjunction with some other efforts. But he's front and center with that. Steve Shoemaker's awesome. A lot of really good partners over the years with this. But yeah, it benefits Special Olympics and Olentangy. Excellent. Just really good partners, really cool people that are there. $20 to get in the door is the suggested price. That gets you. I think we got City Barbecue again this year, and that's not just a little bit of City Barbecue. They've got half a hog in there. They're stripping down basically, and all the fixings that go with it. We got some domestic beers. We got some land grant beers. I know. We'll see what Ramsey has because he's always flying in, but I like to roll deep with a bottle or a handful of flasks myself with some stuff. So he and I are both bourbon guys, if you can tell from looking behind me. So I usually try to bring some special sauce. So if you see me rolling around, I'll probably be wearing this hat. So yeah, pop up and ask me for something. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that out loud, but yeah, hit me up and we'll have some stickers and some other swag and some things like that. But yeah, 11 Dubgate 13, $20 to get into the door for a really good charity for really good people. And yeah, Dubgate is undefeated, right? We've never lost a Dubgate game. You're right, it's a little earlier. To me, that's a great thing. I've been to the Dubgate plenty of times where it was a nooner and it was freaking freezing. It's going to be 84 degrees and sunny on Saturday, I believe. And at a 3:30 or 4 o'clock start time, it's going to be just picture perfect out there. So we would love to see anybody who's in town, even if you're just coming to tailgate or you're doing both, swing by. We would love to see you.
Awesome. Yeah, that all sounds great. I wish I could be there. I was there 2 years ago. I did fly up all the way from Miami. I'm not going to be able to be there this weekend, but it sounds like it's going to go off without a hitch again. And that's kind of you to invite anybody to walk up and ask you questions. I would say the same thing that I would always tag on when Johnny and I hosted Ask Us Anything segment of the 11 Dubcast, which was, yeah, ask us anything within reason. So ask Chris anything
You can
within
ask us
reason.
anything. Yeah, we'll have a couple beer. Well, hell, at that point, you can ask us anything. We'll probably be drinking a little bit. Ramsey too, so no question, we'll probably be off the table in that scenario. Usually, Dan and Chase and Andy, those guys going to the game, they will typically pop over pretty early because they got to get over to the field. But if you wanted to, get a kiss or a hug from the beat guys, you could probably do that too if you got there. If you storm the gates early enough. But yeah, we try to get everybody out there that we can. I'm not sure. I know Jason's son is really, really good at hockey, and dude's got like 4 different hockey games or something that day. So we'll see if Jason's able to make it out. But Ramsey and I for sure, and hopefully the bulk of the beat staff will be there as well.
Awesome. Well, the thing I was trying to set up there was if you're somebody that's been banned from the forums, please don't confront any 11 Warrior staff member about that in real life.
I'm not a moderator, so whatever. That's not my call.
All right. Well, getting to the game then, to quote former President Joe Biden, Minnesota. This is I don't know, man. The Golden Gophers, they are 3-1. I kind of had a shallow expectation of them coming into the season. I guess they're treading water for right now. They did lose to Devin Brown's crew over at California a handful of weeks ago by a 27-14 score. Otherwise, they did beat Rutgers to open, I guess that opened Big Ten play for everybody, technically, because that was the first week of the season. They got out to what I think was a pretty early lead on Rutgers, and then Rutgers almost came back. But they were able to get a 31-28 win. Otherwise, they've played Northwestern State and Buffalo. And while we're nobody to turn our noses up at playing a MAC team in non-conference play, there's hardly anybody the equivalent of Texas on their schedule at this point yet relative to Ohio State. So I'll stop short of saying they ain't played nobody. That was the criticism I had for Washington last week, and that kind of blew up in my face. They didn't really come anywhere close to scoring 42 points in their first road game of the season. So I've had to dial back expectations a bit. That being said, I do think Minnesota is an interesting team on the defensive side of the ball. They're pretty good defending the run and the pass, maybe a little bit more susceptible to the pass based on how Cal was able to attack them and beat them in the one game that they've lost this year. So relative to what we saw last week from Ohio State, where they're still not really letting it rip with Julian Sayin early, and they've got another formidable road test the following week against Illinois. I would think they probably want to make this a quick night at the office and get in a space where they don't have to really worry about who's in front of them, and then just get ready to prepare for the next game and get on the road. So are you anticipating a faster start where they kind of lean on throwing the ball in this game, or do you think we're going to continue to see more of the dialed back slow burn approach that we've seen in a lot of these games to open the season so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because I feel like Ohio State is more or less dictating themselves what it is they want to be on offense more than what opposing defenses are dictating to them at this point. I don't know. I feel like Day is still working toward hey, let's be very careful with saying we're building up to trying to be good in November and in December and beyond, more so than blowing people out on October, 4th or whatever. So I don't know. I feel like, some of those metrics about Minnesota just crack me up because you're right. I think they're number 5 in rush defense, number 9 in total defense, number 23 in pass defense, something like that. But, you kind of let off with it. Talk about played nobody. Like those are just paper, those stats really mean nothing. At least in my opinion, those mean nothing. I mean, especially if you look at like kind of the run game defense stuff. Buffalo, I think, has been their toughest opponent. But when you talk about rush offenses from those teams, Buffalo is 57th in the country, which isn't bad. That's the best rush offense that they faced is Buffalo. California is 118th right now, and Rutgers is 91st. So to me, I don't know. I feel like this might be a game where you lead off with the run And it's one of those games you're trying to build up your line, and fourth and whatever at the beginning of the Washington game, couldn't get it kind of thing. Day sometimes like to have this little fight internally with himself about toughness and whatnot. So, and I love Ryan Day, but I do feel like they might come out in this game looking to establish and run and grind the run, because all week it's, you're building Minnesota up as this great nationally ranked, rush defense kind of thing, when really they've not played any good rushing attack at all. So I won't be surprised if they lean with the run again. And because, the Washington game, what was it? I feel like the first 13 plays, it was 9 rushes, 4 passes. It might have been even 11-2 at some point, something like that, before the drive, before the end of the half, and the first drive in the beginning of the third quarter was basically the ball game. It was pretty conservative. That was on the road. Here I could see it just because Day is still looking to, maybe establish the run a little bit, get a little bit of lead, and then it's easier to, take the training wheels, if you will, off Sayan. So I won't be surprised if they come out looking to run the ball and just establish some physical superiority in a Big Ten clash.
I take it you don't have a very rosy opinion of Greg Schiano if you were willing to anoint Buffalo over Rutgers as the most formidable opponent that
I'm saying rush
Minnesota's had so
offense.
far.
Buffalo has a better, like almost twice as good ranked rush offense than Rutgers does. Do I think head to head that game Rutgers would maybe win? Yeah, okay, but I think Buffalo's a pretty legit MAC team this year. So who knows? My point is Minnesota hasn't played anybody. I could see PJ Fleck being more than willing to go full huddle and just minimize the beatdown kind of thing. What Ohio State have last week? 6 possessions, something like that. In this game, they may only have 7 or 8. You know what I mean? I could see it being another one of those kinds of things. And Day has just talked so much this year about building up to something and being the guardian. Well, it's a Harbaugh, but being the guardian of the W kind of thing, where I could see where it's kind of like, win the surest way kind of thing. I know everybody wants Sayan to throw for 400 yards, but he's averaging like 250 a game. It's not like they're not throwing it. They're just running heavy at first. And I just wouldn't be surprised if they do that again, especially now that they have finally announced what everybody already knows, which is Bo Jackson is obviously the lead dog in the backfield. Start establishing that. What do you have? 17 carries last week. I think Donaldson had 9. Something that was the first time it was really lopsided, and giving your best ball carrier the most carries kind of thing. You look at snap counts, and that's all well and good, but when it was time to run the football, Bo Jackson ran it almost at a 2-to-1 rate over Donaldson. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that, continue on Saturday.
Yeah, that was something I had talked about with Andy yesterday, was that it looks like that Bo has started to emerge as the guy that they want to lead with. The Ohio game, I think it was almost dead even in terms of the distribution of carries between Jackson and Donaldson and Peoples. I will say the other similarity between the Ohio and the Washington game, you kind of alluded to it, was going all the way down into the red zone on the doorstep of first and goal, and getting stopped on a 4th down attempt and turning the ball over on downs on the first drive.
Yep.
I think that part of the reason that they only had as that shallow total of possessions that you referred to earlier was turning the ball over on downs put Washington in a position where, and turning the ball over on the punt return.
Yeah, the punt also, cost them
that put Washington in a position where it was going to be easy for them to control time of possession. And that, I think, more than Ohio State failing to execute, was the main reason why why Washington was able to keep the game close in the first half and kill a lot of clock. That's why I think it is important for them going into this game, particularly as they might be looking ahead to the road trip against a more formidable opponent next week. Start fast, put the kids to bed early, and then you can worry about chewing clock. And maybe you don't need to give Bo Jackson as much burn in the second half, and you can lean more on getting Donaldson and Peoples comfortable and just riding out the evening and making for another successful win on what happens to be 11 Dubgate. So I think we both feel pretty good about where this game is going to go. It's just kind of a question of, are they going to continue the trend of, I'll stop short of calling it a slow start, even though that's how I referred to it on the recap show on Monday. But I guess a slower start than what we would anticipate, given a game where Ohio State's favored by over 3 touchdowns against Minnesota here.
Right,
so ideally you want to see them get out to a fast start and put it away early and and make for a relatively uneventful evening, or at least one that's less exciting than how last week started.
I would be stunned if that didn't happen. You're at home. Minnesota's not as good as Washington. All those things. I think you can still be run heavy and still get out to a fast start. Not that you're saying otherwise, but yeah, last week with the punt return muff and not converting down by the goal line, it made it look, close on the scoreboard at the half, even though it was clear who was in control. I don't think that's at all what we're in store for this weekend. I won't be stunned if Sayan doesn't have 20 pass attempts in the first half either, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I think this could be a grinded out game, talk about Minnesota's physicality, blah, blah, blah. It's almost setting it up to say, yeah, I talked about it and then we just destroyed it kind of thing. When really, like I said, it's hollow as hell what their rating, what some of their metrics are, rush defense based on who they played. And if we're being honest, I mean, what's the defensive end's name? Last name's Brown. I can't remember if it's Anthony or whatever it is. Like he's leading the Big Ten in sacks, 4.5, something like that. But to me, the strength is Corey Parrish is the best player on their team. He's a safety, and Kerry Brown, I think, is their other safety who's pretty good. But to me, the strength is the safeties and the secondary, not so much up front. So I don't know, just sets up to me of, hey, get a lead through the run game, establish it, make the team feel good about being able to run the ball, and then let Sayan do his thing. And I don't know what we turned in his final scores. I'm sure we'll get to that, but I feel like it's a double-digit lead at the half. It's not like last week.
I would certainly hope so. But speaking of score predictions, that was what I was going to get into next to kind of close it out here. I said 35-7. Just kind of taking a look at what the over/under is. I'm generally, I think it was around 46.5, something like that.
Yeah, I thought I saw 45. Yeah, 45 and change on BetMGM. So yeah.
So I'm generally steering towards the under with how good this defense has been. I was of the mind before the Washington game that Illinois was probably going to be the first team to break double digits. Then the Indiana game happened. And then going into the Washington game, everybody thought that they were certainly going to give up probably at least like 10 or 4, at least 2 touchdowns. And Washington didn't even get in the end zone. Now I'm kind of the mind that I don't think until they play Penn State, they're probably going to keep it to single digits. So I've allotted a garbage time touchdown to Minnesota, saying 35-7 is going to be my final score. I'll stop short of revealing what the staff average was. If you want to see what we all picked, you'll be able to see that on Saturday afternoon when we publish all the staff scoring predictions. I will say one person on the beat is predicting a shutout, so that should tell you what the estimation of some people around here in their professional opinion is of
I don't know if I caught
offense.
that in Slack. Yeah, that's interesting. It's viable. I understand it, but yeah, I didn't notice that today.
Well, it's like I said before the Purdue game last year, real men predict shutouts. And that's exactly what Ramsey and I did before they played Purdue.
Nice.
But not to talk myself up too much. Chris, I think you're anticipating a similar outcome to what I've relayed. How do you think this one plays out?
Yeah, I think I turned in 35-9. That was more so playing the game of knowing that we all turn in our scores and you're looking for an average over the course of the season kind of thing. I think a lot of people probably have 35-10 in their pocket, something like that. So I went 9, not because I don't think Minnesota may get into the end zone. I just, I don't think it's going to end up as 9 as much as I did that to kind of play the points a little bit. I just feel like this is going to be one of those games where Ohio State just slowly chokes them out. Minnesota Fleck is kind of willing to be slowly choked out to keep it from being 49-7 or something like that kind of thing, where if the clock can run and make it not look so bad. I feel like Fish was even kind of cool with that last week, right? Where you're kind of managing the game a little bit so it doesn't get out of control. No coach is ever going to say that, but I do think that's a thing. That was another reason why I picked it. I know last week we talked about some of the reasons why Ohio State only had 6 possessions. You made some really good points of why it could have been a little bit higher than that. But I just feel like in general, college football has slowed down. A lot of the teams are huddling up. The clock runs on a lot in a lot of situations it didn't before. So I think it's taking fans mentally a little bit to adjust to that reality. Not that you can't still blow somebody out, but if you got an opponent willing to run some clock and willing to take a minor beatdown instead of a major beatdown, I think that factors in. That certainly factored into my prediction because I think Ohio State is, way, way better than Minnesota. And I think some of their defensive stats are trash because of just who they've played. My only real prediction I have besides the score is that Corey Parrish gets an interception because that dude is so good. And I guess he would play for McLean, but he's, Ohio State is so good, it's not a big deal, but I just wish that dude was on Ohio State's team.
Well, there's no shortage of talent at the safety position, regardless, thankfully, for Ohio
Indeed.
State this season
Indeed.
and lately. Yeah, I gotta say the taking the prices right approach is an interesting way to go about your score
I
prediction.
didn't
But
want
who
to
am
say it
I to
out loud.
who
I
am
don't
I
want
to
you to
judge?
start doing that. It's a long season, like you
my
gotta.
my rule of thumb is just assume that Ryan Day is never going to kick field goals unless they get sacked in the red zone. So I pretty
Right.
much only stick to picking touchdowns for both teams. Because what I mean, if you're losing 28-0, what good does a field goal do for you? You know what I mean? You're probably
Right.
just
Oh,
going to
for
go for
sure.
it on fourth and go in
It's
the end
it's
zone.
interesting you said that though. Maybe the game within the game, talking about Ohio State versus itself, is red zone because red zone offense has been a little bit of a challenge this year. Interception at the goal line, obviously got stuff last week. That play would have worked, but Donaldson runs straight up and down for some reason, like he refuses to duck his head. And Roberts missed his guy. I mean, the play was not well executed. But what does Ohio State do in the red zone in this game? I'm clearly counting on 5 touchdowns, but I will say, if you're talking about holes in the team right now, right guard gets me a little squeamish in a matchup game a little bit. And Ohio State's ability to execute in the red zone probably is, right up there. If you talk about upper tier, first world problems for Ohio State is maybe red zone offense and right guard, at least from my perspective.
Well, it will be something to monitor in terms of how they try to clean that up relative to how the last couple of games have gone. But either way, whether it's big plays or strong drives that end in first and goal to go scores, we both feel pretty good about how this one's going to go. And that means that 11 Dubgate will remain undefeated in the history of 11 Warriors. We're looking to go 13-0. Again, that starts technically at 4 o'clock, as Chris alluded to at the top of this episode, but sometime around 3:30 or whatever, that
We won't refuse you.
yeah,
If
we'd
you
be
can help
happy to
finish
see
any
you.
finishing setups, you can help put the urinal cakes in there or something. We'll have something for you to do.
That'd be nice. All right. Well, Chris, thank you very much for giving us all the details and for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. Go Bucks. Thank you to First Bank of Central Ohio for sponsoring the 11 Dubcast and 11 Warriors this Ohio State football season. We will be back to recap whatever happens against the Golden Gophers Saturday night with Chase Brown Monday morning. Until then, thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and we hope to see you at 11 Dubgate. Take care, folks.